Well, the shutdown melodrama continues. I love the smell of melodrama in the morning. It smells like the United States Senate. I said the other day that this shutdown is just further proof that human evolution is a slow process. This shutdown, what you're witnessing now, is just further proof of why it took human beings thousands of years to learn how to stand upright. This shutdown is bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. Some shutdowns are based on policy. Some shutdowns are based on politics. Some shutdowns are based on a combination of both. This one is pure. It's pure as ivory snow. This shutdown is based on politics. Let me tell you what's going on. I believe in a two-party system, Mr. President. Why? Because two parties create competition. And competition makes all of us better. It does. The Democratic Party, the opposite of my party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is competing within itself right now. And there is a distinct wing of the Democratic Party that is winning that competition. If I wanted to use a pejorative expression, I would call it the loon wing of the party. The loon wing of the Democratic Party. Or you might call it the Bolshevik wing of the Democratic Party. I think a more accurate description is to call it the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. I think that's fair. Now, I'm not saying that all of my Democratic friends are socialists, but there is clearly a wing of the Democratic Party that can only be described accurately as the socialist wing of the party. And that party is in ascendancy. That party is in control. Now, my friend Senator Schumer is the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate. And he, of course, has instructed his colleagues to vote to shut down government. And Senator Schumer has been criticized for that. And I understand. I don't agree with him. I think he made a mistake. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the leader of this effort. I don't. I think Senator Schumer, like many of his colleagues, would like to be loved by everybody in the party, and he would like to be loved by the socialist wing of his party. And I do think that's part of what is motivating this shutdown, and that's why I say it's all about politics. But I don't think Senator Schumer is the person in charge, because Senator Schumer is not the leader of the socialist wing of his party. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is. She's running the show. It was no accident the other day the Congresswoman let it slip. She said, if you really want to negotiate at the end of this shutdown, come see me. Come see me. And I think any fair-minded person has to look right now and say that the two leading members, the quarterback, the two leading members of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, the quarterback is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Now, her substitute is Senator Bernie Sanders. But I think it's the Congresswoman who's calling these shots. Now, Mr. President, I don't hate anybody. I've said that repeatedly, and I mean it. I like all of my colleagues. I look for grace wherever I can find it. When I say my prayers, I do. Every single time, I ask God, don't let me hate. Because it's hard sometimes. It's hard up here. But I do. I say, God, don't let me hate. And I certainly don't hate Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. I want to make that very clear. She has the right to her opinion. She has the right to try to have the socialists take over the Democratic Party. That's the American way. Ironically, I think what she's doing is anti-American, but she has the right as an American to do it, so I don't hate her. But I judge her by her policy. She has her opinion, and I have mine. And I have to judge her candidly by her policy. Here is what the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, led by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, has said to the American people and to the United States Congress and the Republicans in Congress. If you Republicans don't agree to make the federal government $1.5 trillion, not million dollars, not billion dollars, $1.5 trillion bigger, we're going to shut government down. Well, of course we said no. I'm not going to vote for that. My mother didn't raise a fool. And as I've said before, if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm never going to vote for that. Now, where do I come up with this figure of $1.5 trillion? Well, the first thing that the socialists and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is asking us to do is to repeal the health care reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We just passed them. Here it is, Subtitle B, Health in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, we didn't cut Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill. In fact, under our bill, Medicaid is going to increase 2% a year over the next 10 years. Now, what we did by reforming Medicaid, which Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez wants us to reverse, we cut out the waste and the fraud. For example, we found out that there are, no kidding, I'm not just making this up, we found out that there are 2.8 million people on Medicaid who are double dipping in America. They're either signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and Mississippi, double dipping, or they're signing up for Medicaid in Louisiana and they're signing up for the Obamacare subsidies. That's called cheating. Our bill would put an end to that.
Mr. President, the shutdown melodrama continues, and I'll tell you, I love the smell of melodrama in the morning. Smells like the United States Senate. I said the other day that this shutdown is just more proof that human evolution is a slow process. What you're witnessing here is exactly why it took mankind thousands of years to learn how to stand upright. This shutdown, Mr. President, is bone deep, down to the marrow stupid. Now, some shutdowns are about policy, some are about politics, and some are a mix of both. But this one is pure politics, as pure as ivory snow. Now I believe in a two-party system. Why? Because two parties create competition, and competition makes all of us better. But right now the Democratic Party, the opposite of my party, is competing within itself. And the wing that's winning? Well, if I wanted to use a polite term, I'd call it the loon wing. But let's be honest, it's the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not saying all my Democratic friends are socialists, but there's a wing in that party that clearly is, and it's in charge. Senator Schumer, bless his heart, is the leader of the Democrats in this chamber, and he's instructed his members to vote to shut down the government. I don't agree with him, but I don't think he's the one running the show, because the leader of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party isn't in the Senate. She's in the House, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She said it herself the other day. If you really want to negotiate at the end of this shutdown, come see me. And that, Mr. President, tells you everything you need to know. Now, I want to make this clear. I don't hate anybody, When I say my prayers, I always ask God, don't let me hate, because up here, that's a real temptation. I don't hate Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. She has every right to her opinion. She has every right to try to push her party towards socialism, even if I think that's as un-American as decaf coffee at a truck stop. But I do judge her by her policies. And here's what those policies are. She and her socialist friends are saying to the American people, if you, Republicans, don't agree to make the federal government $1.5 trillion bigger, we're going to shut it down. Well, Mr. President, my mama didn't raise a fool, and if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm not voting for that. Now, where does that $1.5 trillion come from? Let me break it down. First, they want to repeal the healthcare reforms we just passed, reforms that cut out waste and fraud from Medicaid. We found nearly 3 million people double-dipping in Medicaid, signing up in multiple states. That's called cheating. Our reforms stopped it. They want to put it back. Second, we found folks making $100,000 a year on Medicaid. Our reforms said you've got to tell the truth about your income. They want to undo that too. Third, we said if you're an able-bodied adult between 19 and 64 with no kids at home, you can still get help, but you've got to work, go to school, or volunteer 20 hours a week. Because welfare was meant to be a bridge, not a parking lot. They want to end that requirement. And fourth, they're furious we stopped billionaires from getting Obamacare subsidies. Under Biden's expansion, even folks making $200,000 or $600,000 a year could get government help. The pandemic's over. That's nonsense. Then there's the icing on the cake. They want $500 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. $500 billion, because apparently they just love the sound of their own ideology on TV. And if that weren't enough, they're demanding we put back foreign spending we removed. $3 million for vasectomies in Zambia, $500,000 for electric buses in Rwanda, $3.6 million for pastry and dance classes for male prostitutes in Haiti, and millions more for LGBTQ programs in the Balkans and Uganda. Mr. President, you can't make this stuff up. That's what they're threatening to shut down our government over. That's what this whole circus is about. We Republicans are saying, let's just extend things 6 weeks. Keep talking, no tricks, no gimmicks, just negotiate. But the socialist wing is saying, not a chance, unless you give us $1.5 trillion. Well, I say again, I don't hate anybody. This is America. We're free to disagree. But, Mr. President, based on the policy positions I've just outlined, based on $1.5 trillion of what I can only describe as pure, unadulterated spending porn, the American people are looking at this situation and saying, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez must be bilingual. She speaks both English and stupid. So no, Mr. President, we're not agreeing to that. All we're asking is to meet halfway. Open the government, keep negotiating, and stop being scared of the socialist wing of your own party.